Welcome, Mile. It's really amazing having you on the podcast here today. I know we had some setbacks in terms of like us actually having the interview, but we are here. We're here today, and I think just to break the ice, I wanted to ask you this question. So, imagine I asked someone else close to you to describe you in three sentences. What do you think they would say?
So, firstly, I just want to say I love this energy on this interview so far.
Thank you.
Um,
Aw.
Secondly, the answer to the question was so funny because when I was preparing it, I was going through it with my partner and I actually asked him, like, how would you describe me? And he
Yeah.
literally just looked at the floor and kept on eating his rusks. You know that face, that weird face people make. And the only
Yeah.
word he could say was, "You're stubborn." And I was like, please elaborate. Like, what is this? And
Yeah.
he said, I'm very determined, like very determined is the word that came up. I connect well with other people. And I'm also a very straightforward person, and that
Yeah.
has landed me in more confrontations that I've wanted to be in. But,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I don't see the point in beating around the bush. Like, if there's something that needs to be addressed, then we've got to say it. So I think
Yeah.
that would sum me up very well. Yeah, I think that's
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it started from eating rice to saying you're stubborn, and then a whole like three sentences of like you're determined,
Yeah.
you don't shy away from challenges, all of those things.
Yeah, maybe he was a little bit scared of me when I picked up on his behavior. Yeah.
But I really like that because you said you kind of talked about how you're not afraid of confrontation. And I can imagine that must be really useful in your job, like in what you do and stuff. So could you kind of take me through, what kind of led you to become a life coach and trauma facilitator?
Yeah. So I think my whole life I was sort of, we all go through challenges, and those challenges just made me into this very resilient and straightforward and confident person. And
Yeah.
I've always known I wanted to work with people, honestly, like since I was 16. And
Yeah.
I went to go study, did my undergrad in psychology and criminology. Then
Yeah.
I did my honors in psychology, where one of my lecturers, um, he was a life coach, and he
Oh
told me
wow.
this approach, and
Okay.
he told me like, oh, this is so cool. This is what you do. And I think I just fell in love with it. Like it's such a it's such a beautiful approach. It's very like um problem 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 solution focused. I don't know if that makes
Yeah.
sense. It's very
Yeah.
like
Makes a
we
lot of
get
sense.
down to the root, and we work with that. It's not we
Yeah.
sit for 9,000 sessions and then we never get to a conclusion. It's like
Yeah.
you come to me with a goal and we sort of work with that.
Wow.
So then
Okay.
I it just sucked me in, and here I am a year later actually practicing. It's amazing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's that's quite something though. I mean, because I know like there's a lot of taboo about like, psychologists and, how it is being with them. Like you as soon as you enter into a therapy session, it's like you're there for life and you're like very dependent on them. And I'm sure that's one of the misconceptions when it comes to the whole world of psychology. I mean, you just kind of cleared that for us like right now. Could you tell me a bit more about what it is to be like a life coach? Like, what does it mean?
Mm. So I get this quite often. A lot of people don't know what a life coach is, which is shocking
Hmm.
because it's amazing. And
Yeah,
not just because I am one, because it really is. Um,
yeah,
so a life coach, it's the approach is beautiful. Like I said, it's goal orientated, short term, high impact approach. And we apply practical tools to help you overcome challenges. Okay.
hmm, yeah,
Within my life coach practice, I implement trauma facilitation.
yeah.
um that is where we so oh my god, you need to edit this out. where I'm stuttering. Okay, so
Yeah.
I implement trauma facilitation within my life coaching approach,
Yeah.
right? Within this, we deal with negative feelings connected to traumatic events, traumatic relationships, or feelings. Okay.
Okay.
So I use these two to sort of help my clients.
Okay, so the main thing is being a life coach, but within that you kind of help people like kind of resolve trauma or like kind of heal, from that and all that stuff. Is that if am I understanding it correct?
Yes, yes. So what I've noticed is like 99% of my clients, all the issues they're dealing with now stems down to childhood trauma, or it stems down
Yeah.
to a troubled relationship they've had with family or friends or a boss somewhere in their early 20s.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So before we can actually move forward, we need to deal with those things that are holding you back. And that's where my trauma
Mm.
facilitation comes in. And then once we've resolved the trauma, we
Yeah.
implement the practical tools. And this
Okay.
includes journaling, like we do exercises, I send TED Talk videos or podcasts, or there's like practical things you have to do during your day and then reflect at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It, like I said, it's very high pressured. It's this like very, you come to me when you're ready to change. It shouldn't be like
Yeah.
maybe next week. It's like we're doing this now. So
I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I really, really love that. That's incredible. Like, that kind of, it's kind of bringing me to my next question, which is, what sets you apart as your life coach, which I think you've kind of already answered, but I do want to get like the full answer of it.
Yes. Yeah. So, firstly, I need to mention that a lot of people look at me and they're like, you're so young. How can you be a life coach? And
Yeah.
I've had that question like asked like up front, and I felt so like taken aback, but it's, it has nothing to do with my age. And I practice what I preach. It makes me relatable to a lot of the people, a lot of my clients. And I also think I have this mentality that I'm also a human. I don't hold myself in a high regard or view myself as someone that's on this pedestal.
Yeah.
We're on the same level. We're all human. And sometimes you just need an external perspective on things.
Mm.
And it's crazy how many clients come to me and they say, you know, this is a true story. One of my clients told me that they went to a therapist and the therapist kept looking at his watch or checking his phone while they're
Oh
in a
no.
session.
Oh
And
my
I'm
word.
like, no,
Oof. Okay.
So I think a lot of people, psychologists, cause trauma for clients, because this
Yeah.
person was so reluctant to actually start therapy. I had to
Oh
convince
man.
him to some degree that like you're safe, you know.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to hear that so many people have those experiences. I mean,
Yeah.
this we're kind of the same age. Have you ever experienced going to a psychologist and seeing that, or heard of a friend go through that?
Yeah, no, I've definitely like I remember in school we had like an educational psychologist, and I'm not trying to like, throw shade to this lady or anything. She was a wonderful human being. But so many people came to her with their problems, and she kind of ended up like ratting on them to like their teachers, and it was just like, I don't think that's a part of your job. Like, I get the concern for the students, and I get that it can be a bit complicated, especially when it's like this is a student coming to you with this issue, and like, maybe you should escalate it, but at the same time it's like I feel like it's a bit of like a conflict of interest, because like for me, from what I know, it's confidentiality is very important in terms of like the client and psychologist relationship.
Yes.
So yeah, I remember like that was definitely one thing that I remember them like complaining about.
Yes, and we'll touch on this a little bit later, but when you look for a psychologist or you look for a person to talk to, you need to make sure they're actually registered with a medical board, right? That's the
Yeah.
first thing you have to look at. And then you look at like, the kind of person that they are, and you have to sign a confidentiality document when you're doing therapy. But it's actually heartbreaking because I experienced the same thing in high school. This lady wasn't even a psychologist or therapist. She was a
Hmm.
mom. just that had a background in psychology or something, and she came to the school and helped children, but it ended up being like every time you went to her, the whole school knew your story because she was telling teachers
Oh,
about it. And that's sad, man. Like that actually creates the foundation of, you know, your mindset towards therapy. And now you're like, no, I
yeah,
don't want to go because like what if they tell everyone? And so it's sad.
exactly.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think definitely there was one other experience that I now recall was I think I myself went to like a psychologist, and I think it like I mean the session was helpful in a way, but then it just ended up being I ended up feeling like she's gonna like diagnose me or put me into some
Yes.
box and like, you know, like send me off with medication that I really don't need, you know? And I think I think with the whole um with one of the questions that we're actually going to touch on later, that
Hmm.
whole thing of self-diagnosing kind of
Yes.
came to mind, and I'm like, I don't want you to diagnose me either. Like it was just like
Yes.
I don't want to be seen as something to be put in a box, you know. As you said, what you said about your approach is, you know, you see people as human and they see you as a human as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like when people come into therapy with the mindset that they're just going to see me as some problem that they need to put in a box and subscribe pills to, you know, then they're like, I might as well just like, you know, just do my own thing at home, even if
Yes.
if it's not as like effective, you know?
Mm, it's so true. You know, this made me think of my friend. She went to a psychiatrist, and I asked her, "How did it go?" And without saying anything, she said, "Yeah, you know, he could diagnose me within 5 minutes." And I was like, "Why would you want to feel the need to be diagnosed? You know, like it's." And she's like, and then he gave me Herbinol. I don't know if you know what that is, but that is like the worst thing to give someone. And I like,
Yeah.
honestly, I hate that so much. It's like an anti-anxiety medication. And
Yeah.
it was like, do you feel relieved that you got diagnosed, or you know, is it the fact that he's putting you in the box? Like I'm trying, you know, and this kind of touches on the question, you know, about self-diagnosing and how do you navigate
Mm.
information overload, you know.
Yeah.
And information overload is a bit of a tricky one. It's amazing that we're able to access all of this information and all of the opinions, you know, but at the end of the day, you're so overwhelmed and paralyzed by all of the information and opinions that it's not helpful anymore, you know.
Yeah.
It actually sometimes makes you even feel more shit about yourself, you know.
Yeah.
Not I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I think coming back, I think I highly recommend going to a psychologist or psychiatrist if you feel like you fall within a certain diagnosis. And then don't just go to one, get multiple opinions, because in this case of my friend, she was there for 5 minutes and he diagnosed her with like three mental
Oh wow.
disorders, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So get more than one opinion, you know. I have also noticed that people self-diagnose because it makes them feel better about what they are and who
Yeah.
they are and the way that they are. So this doesn't apply to every case, but sometimes people use it as an excuse to continue with their bad behavior patterns.
Yeah.
Does that make
Oh
sense?
wow.
Does it make sense
Yeah, that
what I'm
definitely
saying?
does make sense.
Yeah. So it's like, for example, I used to work at a children's hospital and the kid had two broken legs, right? And
Yeah.
he kept hitting the other child with like a bat or something. And I
Yeah.
told him, like, please stop, that's not nice. And he said, I have two broken legs, I can do whatever I want. Right. And
Yeah.
that's not obviously mental health wise, but you can see the sort of the link that I'm trying to
Kind of
make,
how it plays. Yeah.
right? People are like, oh, I have anxiety disorder. It's fine if I isolate at home and
Yeah.
binge eat and just watch TV, which is
Yeah.
obviously not great, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it boils down to. It's very tricky with information, a lot of information on social media. And a lot of self-diagnosing that is happening,
Mm.
but you just kind of have to navigate it correctly. Mm.
I definitely like that. I know we jumped ahead a bit, but
Yes.
I think it's like really important because I mean, even in university, I experienced so many people who are like, "Oh, I have," like they were like kind of it kind of, not to like, I'm not trying to kind of, how do I say this? I'm not trying to diss people with mental health. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. But there were some people where they kind of used maybe the issues that they have as a badge or like an excuse. Like
Yes.
they were like, they would proudly go around being like, "Oh, I have bipolar," or I have depression. I'm taking antidepressants, and like
Yes.
I don't. I was a bit like, I don't know how to take it because I was like, okay, like I
Yes.
get, I definitely understand that you have issues, and I'm gonna definitely like respect that, and I'm going to try my best to help you through it. But it's just like, I think with the whole thing of just the social impact of social media and its influence, it's like kind of making mental health into some kind of badge that you wear, and not trying to fix the problem, but kind of being like, it's like you saying I have anger issues and just being like wearing a
Yes.
badge saying I have anger issues, but
Yes.
not for the purpose of like solving your anger issues, but actually for the purpose of just being like, I have anger issues, deal with it. And
Yes.
I felt like that was like, I was like, that's tricky ground, for a person and for the people around them.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
what do you
Like,
think about what?
don't get me wrong. Like, I definitely think, medication and, labeling or diagnosing people, it has its place, right? Like,
Mm,
it's
yeah.
needed for some people. But
Yeah, definitely.
it's almost like this culture that's developing, especially amongst younger people in schools, where by the age of 14, they've seen like six psychiatrists, they have like five mental disorders, they on
Yeah.
six medications. And
Mm.
that's sad if you think about it.
Yeah, it's very sad.
It's not it. And but you also can't blame them, right? Because you grow up, you
Yeah.
literally open social media, you open Instagram,
Yeah.
and there's like 1,000 videos to tell you, oh no, this is the characteristics of like anxiety disorder, this is what you should do, this
Yeah.
is what you shouldn't do, like. And that's what I
Yeah.
meant, you feel so conflicted at the end of the day.
Mm.
I wouldn't even blame those 14-year-olds for being all over
Oh,
the show,
definitely.
right? Because
Yeah.
that's what we're being exposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's horrible. I mean, it's like, obviously, I mean, kids, 14-year-olds, it's kind of like a thing that it's kind of a phase of life where you're just going through so many emotions.
Mm.
And I mean, if I definitely do see the help that you can get from professionals,
Yes.
and also like the medication and how it can help. It's just, when you did tell me about your friend who the psychologist just kind of threw all the medication on her and just like diagnosed
Yes.
her within 5 minutes. It's like we're seeing symptoms and not humans, and
Yes.
it's like, oh,
Yes. Oh my gosh,
it's,
you literally got it. Yes.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think I love your approach where you actually being like, I can you that yes, we have issues, yes, you may have issues,
Yes.
yes, you may have certain struggles, but you're also a human, and these are like normal things that people go through, and let me help you through it. And I love that.
Yes. Like that's my whole approach. Like when you see me in person, right? Like I sit cross-legged on my chair, like we both have water with us. Like it's not like you're in this office and you need to sit nicely and you have to say the right things, and like, oh my god, you can't yawn or you can't swear. It's like it's your safe space. Like
Yeah.
we're humans, and I could never
Yeah.
understand people putting themselves on this pedestal. It's like
Mm.
we're like this, we're on the same level, right? We're trying to make
Mm.
a connection for you to become better. So
Yeah.
it's definitely, but I can see it becoming more and more a thing, where people try and be relatable instead of, you know, sort of putting themselves on this throne. But I just
Yeah.
wish it would happen more, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I think just like us talking about like, the whole like self-diagnosing and like social media and the impact of it kind of brings me to my question where I wanted to ask, what are some recurring challenges or issues that individuals like commonly face when they like come to you and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing when people come to me, they aren't aware of any challenges. A lot of people come to me and they say, "Oh, I'm struggling with procrastination," or "I'm struggling with this." And we sort of have to dig, it's like peeling an onion. We have to see the causes of this, right?
Yeah.
So trauma is the number one challenge that I see, especially relationship trauma. And taking it even one step further, about 99% of my clients' root problems are childhood or early adolescent trauma, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially links back to their mom or their dad or siblings or
Oh,
caretakers.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually quite scary. And, when I think I found a client that trauma doesn't come from childhood, we just dig a little bit more and then your mom did something or your dad did
Yeah.
something. And it can even be like you don't notice that made such a big impact in your life, right?
Yeah.
For example, if I have to think of myself, and maybe then you can
Mm.
also see if you can piece the puzzles together in your own life.
Yeah.
um, so my dad was very like he's a narcissist. He's a very big manipulator. Like honestly, just not someone that you see as a role model. And
Yeah.
when I was about 16 or 17, him and my brother had a fight, and I told him, "Can we please just stop fighting?" And he told me, "Malay, go stand in the corner and don't say anything because you don't know what you're talking about." Right. And just those few sentences shaped so much of my
Yeah.
mindset when I was younger. Right.
Mm.
And from that, I sort of developed this like inner critic that every time I do something, I doubt it. And I'm like, "Oh my God, like, is that okay? Do I know what I'm saying? Like, do I know what's going on?" Imposter syndrome comes into play, so
Yeah.
a lot of the things that we struggle with now comes down to something that we didn't even know. It was a few sentences. It was something someone said in the moment, right? But it had a
Yeah.
massive impact on you as a human. Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
And I mean, before I kind of share like about like maybe like something that might relate to your story a bit, I another question came to mind, and the question was, like when you help people kind of find the root of their trauma, like what's the next step from that? Like,
Yes. Yes. So that's where my trauma facilitation comes in, right? So,
mm-hmm.
okay, we found the root cause. We need to deal with it. And the trauma
Yeah,
facilitation, that the methods I use are, it's intense. Like it's very intense. We call it unblocking, and then we also do a basic TIR. And it's just talking. It's questions. Let's say you've gone through a very traumatic event. We literally go through the event in detail about like
oh
20
wow,
times, right? And it's crazy, but it's beautiful because every time you recall the event, something new pops up in your story. And at the end of the
yeah,
session, you can piece everything together, and something that looked overwhelming or felt like too much to put together, it's now you have this big picture and you're like, "Oh, this is what I was scared of. And
yeah,
sometimes it's not even that big of a deal. And then people will say, like, "I thought this was going to be so overwhelming, but now it's just this. It's just this.
yeah,
So it's quite cool. So that's where my trauma facilitation comes in. And then
oh
once
wow,
we sort of shed some of the emotional charge relating to your trauma, we can actually move forward. Yeah.
oh wow, okay.
Mm.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's yeah, that sounds quite enabling though, because I
Yes.
remember, I think, oh yeah, I think we all have our own set of like psychologist like horror stories,
Yeah.
but I remember, I remember I think my dad telling me about his friend who suffered from like bipolar disorder, and he went to a psychologist, and the psychologist kind of um 'cause they did dig deeper, but they ended up like blaming the wrong person for the trauma. because that person didn't actually cause a trauma, but because that boy went to the psychologist and the psychologist said, oh, so and so is responsible for this trauma, and they didn't kind of work through it more and like actually like dig deeper as you do, um, that his like that family member of his was kind of like cast out, and then like years later they found out that that family member was innocent of what like ever that young boy like felt happened, or the
Wow.
psychologist kind of told the young boy this is what happened, and I feel like that is so, it's so influential into someone's life, like having someone who's professional telling you like
Yes.
this is the root of your trauma, which I
Yes.
think can be really helpful, but like when it goes the other way it can be really detrimental.
Yes, yes. I think so. One thing people need to understand is like life coaches, we don't give advice and we don't
Yeah,
give suggestions. We are purely here to guide you through your own thoughts, right?
yeah.
Sort of walking you through, okay, if you decide to do this, what will happen? If you decide to do this, what would happen?
Mm.
And mostly my clients come to the realization like something is happening here, or they can tell me, oh, my mom was very abusive when I was little and that's why I'm the way I am, right? And then we deal
Yeah,
with that. Or if
yeah.
something happens and let's say my client constantly ignores my questions about his mom, I would ask,
Mm.
why, what is going on here, like why are
Mm.
you avoiding the questions? And then we sort of get into it. So I think also this is also touching on some of the other questions that we're about to talk about, but it's when you go into this field, you really need to have a passion. Like you really need to be, in tune with people and sort of be there 100%, so you can pick up on, oh, this person is avoiding talking about his mom, or
Yeah.
I can sense something is going on here. So
Mm.
psychologists and psychiatrists are different, but for life coaching and trauma facilitation that I do, it's mostly my client telling me like this is where the trauma is, or that this is what I feel we need to work on.
Mm.
So it can be challenging, but I don't experience that, at least.
Okay, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that because
Yeah.
I definitely agree with like your approach to things is like you kind of helping, kind of being more of a guide than actually
Yes.
like, the person telling you what to do.
Yes,
So
yes,
actually, it's because it's empowering. I can imagine it's empowering.
right?
Um,
Yeah.
but I think even as you said, like earlier, you talked about how people's past experiences kind of avoided them from reaching out. Could you maybe kind of tell me more about like what prevents people from reaching out?
Yes. So coming back to the challenges question on that. So the second biggest challenge that I see is that
Mm-hmm.
people don't know how to navigate this overwhelming sense of anxiety that something isn't right in their lives. Okay. So the point that people normally decide to reach out is when things have progressed out of their control. Okay. And that's why I always
Yeah.
encourage people to reach out sooner rather than later. And the sad thing is, linking to your question, is that I think people are too proud to ask for help because then they have to
Mm.
admit that something is wrong, you know.
Yeah.
But reaching out for help doesn't mean you're weak or incompetent or that you are out of control. Even
Yeah.
Olympic athletes have coaches to help them, right?
Yeah.
We need to apply that same mindset to mental health professionals. The whole point of asking for help is to get better, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why we ask for help. So I
Mm.
think I think that just boils down to why people, it prevents people from reaching out to ask help. Yeah.
I can definitely relate to that
Yeah.
because I remember just going through quite a like a lot of traumatic incidents, in COVID and like a few years even after that. And I remember how hard it was for me to actually go to my parents and like not I didn't actually go to my parents. My parents suggested it, and they
Yeah.
were like, I know that you're struggling with like these things. Do you want to go to someone to talk about it? And at first I was like, you know what, let me think about it. I kind of just let it be. And then things started coming up and they were like, do you want to talk to someone about it? Like, you know, they kept on kind of prodding,
Mm,
in a really like good way. It wasn't like you have to go to help, you have to get help. It was more of, do you want to talk to someone about it that's like unbiased and just someone who can like, you know, just hear you and just spend that time focusing on this issue. And I finally was like, you know, one day I was just like, I had enough. I was like, I'm done trying to fix this by myself. It's not working. You know, I need to set my pride aside, as you
yeah.
said, and I actually need to reach out. And then I actually did reach out, and I've been finding it like incredibly helpful, just having someone, you know, to talk to and just to work through certain things with. And I
Yes.
think, as you said, there is a certain like level of pride that comes, you know, that prevents people from like, you know, reaching out. Yeah.
Yes, yes, literally. And if you think about yourself in that scenario, the first time your parents asked you, like, do you want to go see something? What was hindering you from saying yes?
I think so. One of the things would be definitely the pride. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to, you know, I don't want someone to put me in a box and diagnose me.
Yes.
I just want someone to kind of, I like, I just kind of, I had a bad experience prior to that, where I kind of experienced something similar to what your friend said, whereas I went to one session and the lady was already like, you know, like putting me in this box. And I was like, I I was like, I don't think that I don't you know, feel like I don't want, okay, I feel like that was me kind of like self-diagnosing and be like, I don't have this issue.
Yes.
Um but I also just didn't want to go to someone where they just the first they're gonna just look at me and be like, you have all of these issues, here are
Yeah.
these medications, you know. I
Yes.
wanted just to talk to someone so I could actually like work it out for myself, you know.
Yes.
And I didn't my past experiences were not like that, so I was kind of like really nervous, a bit nervous when my parents were like, do you want to seek help? Because it for me, what I was hearing was like, we should get you checked into rehab, you know.
Oh, yes.
but but that's not what like they were intending to say, and that's not what like this what I'm going through now, you know.
Yeah.
So I think I can definitely relate to people prevent like not going and not reaching out because they have all of these like maybe past experiences from like from themselves, or I mean from people around them, or you know what they've heard about, and
Yes.
they're just like, I can sort this out myself. But reaching out does enable you in a way, as you said.
Yes. Yes. It's literally that. I mean, like, do you play any sports at the moment?
Yes, I used to play hockey. Like I used to play like lots and lots of
Yeah.
sports. So yeah.
So with hockey, you had a coach, right? What
Yeah.
did your coach do for you while you were playing hockey?
I mean, your coach doesn't go get on the field with you, but they definitely tell you like these are the exercises you do, these are the warm-ups you need to do.
Yes.
You know, they help prepare you mentally, physically, you know, to actually get onto the field and play a game.
Right? Exactly. So
Yeah.
just as you would have a coach for like a sport or something, now you just have a coach for life, you know?
Yeah.
In my instance,
Yeah.
it's like literally just giving you that outside perspective. Imagine you're playing hockey and you can't see that, I don't know, your ball keeps touching your feet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, so let's say you can't see that, right? You have
Mm.
this outside perspective telling you, listen, but maybe just hold your stick a little bit further away and then
Yeah.
try that. Let's see how that works, right? So
Yeah.
that's basically what we're doing when you would come to me for a session. It's like literally 7 to 9 sessions, very high impact, very practical, very and I don't like leaving my clients if we have not come to some sort of conclusion at the end of the session, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes I have sessions over 2 hours where I'm like, we are not leaving until we have worked through this emotion or worked through this
Yeah.
event, that has
Mm.
happened. So I think that's the best analogy that you mentioned, like being a hockey coach, I'm just a life coach. It's just there to help you, give you that outside perspective, help you just improve on your strategies that you're employing in your game. Yeah.
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 I love that actually. I really
Yeah,
do.
that's a good one.
Yeah. And I think um we did talk about the self-diagnosis earlier. But I did want to ask, like, you did give a bit of advice earlier on that, but what is there any more that you'd want to say on that topic of like just navigating the challenges of information overload and what to do if you just feel so overwhelmed by everything and you're just not sure what to do next?
Honestly, I think if you're overwhelmed by all the information that you're seeing on Instagram, put your phone down. Like honestly, it takes 2 seconds to just put your phone down. Like just
Yeah.
switch it off. Because I've noticed sometimes I sit and my phone gets closer to my face, and my back almost starts like I look like a shrimp sitting on the couch looking at my phone because it's
Yeah.
like all this information is sucking me in. And
Mm.
before I noticed, I stopped breathing. Actually, I'm like in this tense ball. My muscles are aching. My back is sore. And
Yeah.
I'm anxious.
Yeah.
Just put your phone down. It's because just stop that cycle of like almost like a dopamine intake. Just stop it, you know? And
Yeah.
I think when it comes to social media, don't get me wrong, there's really nice social media accounts that give
Mm.
really good content and advice, but fact check it. That's like just fact check everything you see, because one
Yeah.
video is like do this and the other video is like that's the worst thing you can do. Fact
Yeah.
check it, Google it. It literally takes 2 minutes out of your day. And like I said, like go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and not just one. Get multiple opinions if they ever had to diagnose you. I
Yeah.
think that's what it boils down to, like just stop the cycle. And if you really feel like something is wrong, go to a psychologist or psychiatrist that's like
Mm.
registered with the medical board.
Yeah.
Like I can't emphasize that enough, because you get like
Yeah.
some whack people out there. So yeah.
I can I can imagine.
Yeah, it gets a bit crazy.
And then, I mean, I think before we go to the next question, now you've got me curious as do you have any like real like stories, like horror stories of like some really wacky like psychologists or inverted commas, like, that you were like, what are you doing? Kind of thing.
It's so funny because my partner, he's just a trauma facilitator, and he takes it very seriously. And he dislikes this one group of like mental health professionals. And I told him
Yeah.
before this, I'm not gonna say anything bad about anyone. Like it works for some people. I don't like it, or I've heard weird stuff, but it's honestly, if it works for you, great stuff. But like, please just go make sure the person you're going to actually knows what they are doing, um,
Yeah.
before you go into sessions. But otherwise, I don't actually have any stories.
So just to kind of summarize what you said,
Yes,
um, you said put your phone down,
yes,
fact check. If
yes,
you think something's wrong, go to a professional. And
yes,
if to take it even one step further, if they diagnose you, go to get a multiple opinions. Did
yes,
I was I able to sum
yes,
that up?
yes. If you're overstimulated by social media, put your phone down. Stop the cycle.
Mm.
Right? If you feel anxious and you feel like, oh, this is really stressing me out, I think there's something wrong, go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, more than one. But I think you summed it up beautifully, what you just said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's like it sounds very simple, but I mean, obviously when you get to actually doing the actions, it's a bit harder. Because I mean, the way phones are attached to our bodies these days is a bit scary. We could use a whole other like I think episode to talk about like the effects of, how
Yes.
attached we are to our phones and how that affects like mental health.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Honestly, like Miriam, I don't think you understand the impact that social media has on your mental health.
yeah,
Um, like I said, one day I can be crunched up, sitting like this, anxious on my couch, overstimulated, feel bad about myself. And I also don't think people notice when you pick up your phone, please go look on Instagram how long you actually spend on that social media app, because it's a ridiculous amount. Sometimes people go up to 4 hours on social media, you know.
Yeah.
Imagine the amount of information that you take in that period of time, right?
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. But like you said, like I can just go on this into another rabbit hole about
Yeah, I
social
mean,
media.
yeah, it was, I can definitely relate to what you said.
Yeah.
And also I can definitely see, like even in myself, like the effects that social media has on me when, I've spent quite a bit of time just like glued to that like little thing that I'm holding with my hand. Like, from the bad posture to like
Yes.
just feeling just like so overwhelmed with everything. And
Yes.
it's like the answer is so simple, but it seems really hard to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's why I said like the tips you gave earlier, they seem very simple, but they're not as simple as people may think when they actually have to do like implement it, you know?
Right. Right.
And sorry, did you want to say something?
Mm-mm.
Oh, sorry. I think that kind of makes me think about how like live coaching sessions must be for people. Like as helpful as it can be, is it's also must be quite like and draining in a way, is in the fact that like you're going through so many emotions, you're unpacking things
Mm-hmm.
that you've bottled up for years,
Mm-hmm.
and you're actively trying to like push through this wall that you've like had built up for like years. I can imagine how it must be for you as a life coach to kind of go through that with someone, and
Yes.
also and for that person as your client, to just like keep on pushing through, to achieve their goal. Um, could you maybe tell me, because I've always been curious, how psychologists and like people kind of in the psychology field do this. Like, you guys encounter so much emotion, and a lot of people like, they obviously kind of unpack all of their emotional baggage with you in your sessions. How do you personally like kind of cope with that, like emotionally? How do you make sure that you're okay?
That is such a good question, honestly. And I've asked all of my psychology lecturers, even my psychologist included, like, how do you cope with this? Because it's a lot to take on. And I won't lie to you, my clients get angry at me. It's because you're trying to push through and it's their like coping mechanisms not wanting to break, and you
Yeah.
constantly pushing. People get angry at me, like people get frustrated with me, but I sort of just have to tell them like this is normal, like sit with the feeling. And I think I give myself that advice. It's normal to take on emotion, and it's normal to feel sad when you've heard a very traumatic event happen to someone, and it's
Mm.
okay. Like sit with the emotion, let it sort of go through you. And I'm like I said, I am such a I preach I practice what I preach. Sorry.
Yeah.
I practice what I preach. So when I tell my clients go journal, I journal every day. When I tell my clients to
Yeah.
go meditate, I meditate every day.
Yeah.
It's those things that I know actually work because I use them in my life.
Yeah.
And that's helped me so much. I can't, journaling is like the biggest key. Do you journal?
I'm trying to. I'm
Okay.
getting into it.
Okay. Because I would have said you need to go journal. Journaling is like the craziest thing because you think it's stupid and it's really difficult in the beginning, which is normal. But as soon as you sort of like gone past that like awkward stage, it is so insightful. It is
Mm.
crazy. I've seen people do like discover the weirdest things, the most beautiful things just through journaling. So I journal, I meditate, I think I sit with my feelings very well. Your support system. I have a very, very beautiful partner and a family that helped me. And then I have my own psychologist. So if I ever need to like some unpack something that's really heavy on me, I have that person.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
but all the tips I'm giving myself, I would give my clients.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, yes, we said that, like I'm a human, and that, you know, the same feelings
Yeah,
that you're feeling, I'm feeling. It's not because I'm a life coach,
exactly.
I have all my shit together. That's not how it works.
Yeah,
You know, I understand what you're going through most of the time. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I like that. I mean, I think that's always been something that I've been very curious about is, how does a psychologist or the life coach, in your case, kind of make sure that they stay okay, because I mean, if
Yes.
because I can imagine how you mean to be kind of to get into the field, you have to be sensitive to other people's emotions. You have
Yes.
to be able to empathize.
Yes.
And along with that can sometimes come with you actually taking people's emotions on and then that draining you. And I mean, if that's your job and you do that every day, I mean, I can only imagine what it might do to someone. And I love what you said that the way you tackle it is practically, it's not some far-fetched like theory that you use to kind of like to make sure that you're doing okay, but you're like, if I tell you to journal, I journal. Like if I tell you to go out and seek out help, I'm going and seeking out help. Which I
Yes.
love is that we keep kind of coming down to the same theme of like you being human just as much as your client is human.
Yes. Yes. That's literally what I live by. If you look at my Instagram page, I'm weird on there. I'm me, like
Yeah,
the reels I post, it's me, it's how I talk, it's how I interact, it's how I say things. My hands are all over the place. Like it's just me, right? And
yeah,
that's what I want people to see. And that's what I also want you to feel comfortable with you being you, because I'm being me. Does that make sense?
yeah,
Right. So
yeah,
I want to create the safe and comfortable environment. Like if you want to come and cry for an hour in my office, that's all good, man. Like I'll sit there and maybe cry with you. It's like that's just the environment that I want to create for my client,
mm.
you know. So that's really nice how you summed it up. We're just coming back to I'm a human.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
literally. Yeah.
um Actually, coming to that, what kind of factors do you think people should consider if they want to become a life coach?
Yes. Yes. You get these people, and this is the group of people that I mentioned earlier. I don't want to talk smack about, but I think you need to have a passion for helping people. Okay. You need to understand that you're dealing with very fragile humans, and you need to be able to create a safe and supportive environment. Okay.
Yeah,
And on top of that, the self reflection needed to do this is intense. Okay. So we need more mental health professionals, 100%. But please don't pursue this path. And I'm going to emphasize this again. Please do not pursue this path for shits and giggles. Okay. It's like, this is not about you as a life coach or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. It's about
mm,
the people you are working with. It's their feelings, it's their loved ones, and it's their lives. So I'm quite strict. And I think this is where you can see I'm very straightforward. Like, I'm all about working and collaborating with my clients, and I hate to hear that they had bad experiences with other people.
yeah,
It sort of hinders the progress I'm trying to make with them. So
mm,
I think that's just what it comes down to. Like, you need to be passionate, you need to be resilient, you need to have, again, that passion, because if you have the passion, the challenges don't seem overwhelming.
yeah.
Yes, it's difficult to take on emotion, like, don't get me wrong, but if I didn't have the passion for this, I wouldn't be able to continue. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. It kind of, but I wanted to kind of a question that came up when you were saying that was that people, what did I want to say? I had a bit of a brain fart there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, I get that.
But I kind of one thing that came to mind was, like there's so many people who like, when we're in school, we're like, I know I want to be in a career that I want to help someone. But that might be, it can be as broad as wanting to be a doctor to being a lawyer, you know. So what would you say is kind of was some discerning factors for you where it was like, I want to be I want to go into psychology, and like not, I don't want to become a medical doctor. I don't want to become a
Mm,
lawyer. I don't want to become an NGO founder. Like I want to be a
mm,
psychologist. Like what were some discerning factors for you?
mm. Well, I think, funny enough, I wanted to become a lawyer up until 16 years
Oh
old.
wow.
Yeah, crazy. And then I went to a psychologist myself when I was 16, and she was just fantastic. Like, it was eye-opening. The things that she made me realize I wanted other people to realize. I wanted to be that tool to you walk out of my session and you're like, oh, like this is crazy. I've never thought about this, like that gives
Yeah.
energy. And I'm like, oh, you. Like, I'm so happy. So
Yeah.
I think just that was the realization. When I was 16, I went to a psychologist, right? Then in university, I had my first like super, super bad like anxiety episode. Went to my doctor because I thought that's the best thing. And she just prescribed Herbinol, which once again is like the worst thing you can give someone. Um, that's doesn't even know how to navigate their own feelings. And I think that's just also solidified like we go to our doctors for help, but we're unaware that there's life coaches, that there's and I can work with someone that's 14 and older, like I can work with anyone. There's no age limit and can actually help them. So I think the fact that we're unaware that there's other options, because I only heard about these other options a year later. Meanwhile, I was
Yeah.
on medication that was just given to me by a doctor.
Yeah.
um so I think, coming back, I also forgot what I wanted to say. It's because I like go on these trails and I'm like, no, this is it. I think I just knew. I think you just know. Honestly, you just know. And that's just what I've always about anything. I'm a very big energy person. So like if I have to make a decision, my energy will guide me. Like if I know, I know.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, I think when I was 16, the lady opened the door and I was just like, oh my God, yes, and went for it. Yeah.
That's really cool. That is like
Yeah.
actually quite that's really, really cool. I love how it's like how that certainty was there.
Yes.
I think the reason why I asked that question was because people like me,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I know there are many people that are like me, are the uncertain people. Like
Yeah.
we just cannot make decisions. We come come, grade 11 and we had to choose, after start applying to universities for courses, you're like, ah,
Yeah.
the thing that we've been dreading out the most.
Yeah.
And I think even though, I've completed my degree, I'm, kind of on to the next stage of life, I'm still very uncertain. I'm like, I still don't know what I want to do with my life. And I think that's kind of the the reason I asked that question was for people like me, how
Mm.
would you say, like, what kind of, like, the things that helped you, what would you say could, like, help, someone else who's, like, thinking of psychology, but they're also thinking of medicine, but then they're also thinking of becoming veterinarian, Like,
Is that
what
you?
would you say? I think even from your background as a life coach and personally, what would you say are some, like, key pointers or things people can kind of do to discern, like, to find their way, their path?
I think I'm going to use you as an example. Is you're uncertain, right, about where you want to go. What 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 are you passionate about?
Oh, you asking me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I think one thing definitely that I think we share is the passion for people. Like I
Mm.
have this incredible love for people, and all I want to do is to empower them and to actually like let them know that they're loved and that they're valued in this world. Because I think people don't often feel that because it seems every day you open the news and people are just resources. People are just like victims in a war, the war of like, the war of guns or the war of money. Like it's one thing or the other. And I think for me, one of my main things is love for people and love, and one of the kind of the aspects of that love is kind of getting people's stories, getting people's voices, which I do through this podcast. Um, so that's kind of like that's if I were to sum up like what I'm really passionate about, it would be that.
And what, let's say you're 50, what would you have hoped to achieve in those 50 years on Earth?
Oh,
Intense
um,
questions.
intense questions. Um, I definitely would have wanted to continue this podcast for not just 1 year or 2 years. Like I wanted to be one of those podcasts that's like that they can be like, she was a podcast host for like this and this years. I think people like Jay Shetty or people like that, they really inspire me with the way they kind of create content and they create media because there's an intense and genuine like love for people and appreciation for people there. um I think that would be definitely one thing that I'd want to have, just there. I think another thing would be that I didn't let my talents and hobbies go to waste. Whether that be my skills with photography or, talking to people, interviewing people, I wouldn't want that to go to waste. But when it comes down to my career, it's kind of like a blank space.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm,
So I think I know a lot of people kind of have that, like they know what they're passionate about. They know what deep down they want to have in their life, but they're just not sure, like, maybe the aspect of making money or, the whole career concept. That's what they're like unsure about.
mm-hmm. So, how can you incorporate your passions, your hobbies, everything you love and want to achieve into a career? How do you channel that into a career?
I guess one way would be definitely like doing what I already do. So, running this podcast, and
Mm,
soon I'll be releasing a blog for the podcast, kind of where I kind of touch on topics that we discuss in our podcasts, so people can kind of get, so it can cater to people who like to read as well as people who like to listen. Um, I think the tough part is when it comes to actually like searching for jobs, you don't go on LinkedIn and find a job that was made for you. You can't just you
mm,
go there, you look for a job that will accept you. First of all, get you an interview, and then you get in, and then you kind of find your way. Um, but I mean, ideally, I would want to be someone who kind of creates my own career, you know, and I'm not sure how that would work out, so what I would
mm,
exactly do. But I think I really love what you do, as like a life coach, and like as what you've been telling me. I'm just like so intrigued by like, what your mission is, and as well as your journey.
mm. I feel like we definitely need to continue this conversation later because I have so many follow-up questions, but it will take forever. But basically, what I was trying to get down to is what are your passions? What do you want to achieve in your life? And how can you incorporate all of this into a career? It's super
Mm,
scary. I get that because I did it myself to sort of, go from studying to creating something of your own, right?
yeah,
But it can be worth it, thinking of my own experience again. And that's always what I come back to. What's my passions? Like, I have an art workshop in Cape Town, right? I'm a very artistic person. So even in
yeah,
my life coaching sessions, we do vision boards where we literally like paint and put pictures and glitter. And, you know, that's how I try and incorporate my passions into my career out working with
yeah,
people, right? So I would
yeah.
always encourage people, how can you channel all those things into a sustainable life, right? Because
Mm,
we need to earn money, we need to survive. But if
yeah,
you're, let's say, comfortable, you're still staying at your parents, you don't have to pay rent, you don't have to pay for groceries, like that is the time to make shit happen for yourself because you have the opportunity to do it. and you need to be grateful that you can do it. So I think
Yeah.
that's basically what I would get down to, your passions, hobbies, how to channel it into a career, make a sustainable life, and use the opportunities that you have. Use the positions that you are in in use the position that you are. Woo! Nope, that's not making sense. Just use the opportunities, period.
I like that. And I think just coming like going from that, are there any like resources or like organizations that you would recommend to people for additional supports and maybe like even guidance on their mental health journey?
So firstly, I would say go follow my page on Instagram. I post and repost a lot of informational content regarding mental health. And then there are also a lot of really good Instagram profiles, like Enable Direction, that's an Instagram profile, and then Dr. Adam Dull, really good content as well. Um, I think those are the type of people that I follow. And that's why I said, like,
Yeah.
I post and I repost certain things. Um, so besides that, I don't have Facebook. I used to uh, research a lot of things in university. I don't want to do it anymore. I think Instagram is my main thing, and honestly, the best resources that I can put out is if someone follows me and then sort of like see what I post on my profile, and so
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And I think one of the questions from one of our listeners was
Yes.
how can okay, also can anyone be a life coach, or how is one life coach better or more valid than another?
Yes. So I'm not sure if this is the right answer, but like I said, with the psychologist that needs to be registered, life coach is the same. You need to register with the medical board. That means you actually went through training to gain the skills that you have that you can pass on to your clients. A lot of people just decide in their 50s that they want to be a life coach. It's not how it works, right? So just like you wouldn't go to a psychologist that hasn't had training, the same with a life coach. Um,
Mm,
I don't think one life coach is more valid in terms of their skills than the other one. I think you have to go find a life coach that works for you.
yeah.
See what fits for you. A lot of the times I do like an intake session that's for free, like, and that's your chance to see, are we vibing? Like, are you the right type of person? Do I want a more formal person? Do I want someone that is as relaxed as I am? You know,
Mm.
so I think I think that's the right answer to that question. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think that does answer this person's question.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because as you said, there are a lot of I think before we kind of started talking, I came across a lot of people who said they were life coaches, but they were kind of you weren't sure if to become a life coach, you need to be qualified, or if you could just do a course and then you become one. So I think you actually like answering this question has probably cleared a lot of people's doubts.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. So you
because yeah,
can.
I
Yes.
oh sorry, no, go, you go
No,
ahead.
no, no, no. I just wanted to say you do like your course and you're a student life coach at that point, right? So you still have
Yeah.
your supervisor, but after you've reached a certain amount of hours, 100 hours practical, you have to apply, register, write an exam, and then it's a long process. It takes about 18 months to register.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's
18
not
months.
it's not just like, oh, I just decided I'm going to do it one day.
Yeah.
It also is quite frustrating because a lot of the time these people, they convince you that they can help you and whatever, but they give you advice. It's complicated, and I would not suggest going to someone if you're not sure if they registered or not. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
definitely a big takeaway would be
Yes.
go to someone that
Register.
has, that medical background
Yes.
and
Yes.
well, it's registered with the medical board.
Yes. There's a lot of
Okay.
medical boards. So, like, it can be anyone. It just should be one, you know.
Mm,
That's important. Yeah.
okay. And I think as we wrap up, right, what are the key takeaways you'd want to leave our listeners with about like life coaching, trauma facilitation and mental health support?
Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest thing I want people to take away from this is that you need to prioritize yourself. So let's use an example. You hurt a muscle in your leg. What do you do? What do you do?
You'll like rest it, you'll like take medication for it, you won't put as much stress on it. Like,
Yes, right? Let's say it becomes worse, right? You'd go to a chiro, you go to a
yeah,
physio, you to ask for help, right?
mm,
So why can't you do that for your mental health? That's basically it. So you would
yeah,
spend a lot of people, I've encountered a lot of people say, oh, I don't have the budget for a psychologist or a life coach. But then they go out and they spend 700-800 rand on drinks with friends, or they go buy
yeah,
clothes, right? So, but you won't spend those resources on your own well-being, you know.
yeah.
So remember that you have to live with yourself for the rest of your life, and you need to prioritize yourself. Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
Powerful.
It's very powerful. I love how throughout the whole interview you kind of had these like punchlines, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, you had a good like explanation, but then you summed it up with like this, and then that is how you did. I love it. I love it.
That's
Um, I think I, as well as many of the viewers, will be curious as to how they can reach you if, like, let's say they want to book a session with you or learn more about your services. Also, are your sessions conducted online or in person, or is it like a combination of both?
Yes. So my sessions are online via Zoom or in person in Cape Town. It's in the Claremont southern suburbs area. Then I think people can reach me mainly through Instagram. That's just the way for me. You can pop me a DM. Then my email address is on there. My website is on there as well. It literally launched like a few weeks ago. With all the information you need. There's blog posts. There's the whole journey laid out. With literally everything that you need to know.
Yeah.
But if you're still unsure, just like pop me a message. Like that's how I communicate with everyone. And don't be shy. I mean, I just like chatting to people, to be honest. just about anything. Just pop me a message. Yeah.
Okay. I think this was an incredible like episode. I was gonna say session. I was gonna like, this was
Sounds
an
like a
incredible
session at
session.
one point.
But yes, this was an incredible interview, and I'm really glad that we just got to discuss like so many topics, from how your journey started to different challenges you may have faced to people self-diagnosing and the impact of social media, and I mean to career uncertainty. And we kind of just boiled down to the whole thing of we kept to the theme of psychologists are human and
Yes.
life coaches are human just as much as you are human. And
Yes.
um yeah, I just wanted to once again just thank you for this opportunity.
No, I mean, I think I should thank you. Like, you've been so amazing, not just on this interview, but off it as well. Preparing for this session. So thank you for having me. Honestly, I feel so grateful.
Oh man.
Do you want me to stop recording now?
Yes, yes, we can stop.